Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Staffing Matters and Urgency Committee. It's Monday, the 14th of July, and I'm Councillor Claire Douglas, and I'm chair of this committee. So if we go directly to the agenda, first we have apologies, and there are no apologies today. Everybody is present. Item number 2 is declarations of interest. Does anybody else have any declarations of interest in the room? Because I do, so I need to give mine. No. Okay, so under item 8, City of York Trading Limited and Work with York Limited, appointment of director and chair nominations. That is me that is going to be considered for those roles. And so during that item, I will step outside the room and Councillor Corbane will chair the meeting for that item, and Councillor Lomas, who is with us today, will sub for me at that point. So she's not participating in the meeting until that point. Right, next item then is minutes, and that is to approve and sign the minutes of the meeting of the Staffing Matters and Urgency Committee held on the 2nd of June 2025. Can I see those who are in agreement of accepting those? Yep, so those are accepted. That's unanimous. Thank you. Next item is public participation. That's item number 4. And we have no registered speakers for public participation today. So moving on to, we do have a written representation that came to all members of the committee, and that has been read and considered ahead of the meeting. So thank you for that. Item number 5 then is changes to membership of committees and other bodies. And we have Helen Whiting here who's going to run us through that. Oh, Reese. Sorry, Reese Williams is going to run us through that paper. Please go ahead, Reese.
The committee's been asked by SACRE to approve the appointment of a new member to their Group A, and that is Tony Lawton. So the committee is asked to approve that recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much, Reese. So that can be seen in the papers at page 13 there. So SACRE asking us to approve and confirm the appointment of Tony Lawton, representing Faith Catholic, to SACRE's Group A. Can I see those who are in agreement with that? Thank you. So that is approved unanimously. Thank you. And we move on to item number 6, which is recruitment of Head of Paid Services. And Helen Whiting, Chief Officer HR and Support Services, is going to introduce this one to us. So Helen, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the recruitment of Head of Paid Services. Our Chief Operating Officer, who holds the designation of Head of Paid Service, has given an early indication that he'll be retiring from his post in Easter. Although this may seem quite far ahead, to actually include the smooth transition, we are looking at doing an external recruitment campaign, which, with a notice period of a successful candidate, if we're successful, hopefully, and appropriate approvals, could take between 6 and 8 months, hence why we're trying to move forward this as quickly and swiftly as we possibly can. So the COO post is, we're looking to proceed with the COO post to a chief exec position, and looking for this committee to look for an appointment of a subcommittee for that post and conduct the recruitment process. This is unlike any other recruitment process, though, because this one will actually have to be presented to full council on approval. So the subcommittee will make a recommendation that will then go to executive members, and then it will be approval at full council. We'll be looking at full council in approximately October if all approvals and a successful appointment is actually made. In terms of background, our Chief Operating Officer has been in post since 2020, but has been within the organisation for just shy of 17 years at the moment. I've given at paragraph 5 the current corporate management team, which is headed up by the Chief Operating Officer. There isn't proposed to be any change to the corporate management team structure prior to recruitment. However, I do expect that if a new chief exec comes in, there may well be a reshuffle of corporate management team. We've looked at a number of different options for replacing a chief operating officer. The option to do nothing is not an option. We have to have a head of paid service. It is a legal requirement, a statutory requirement that the council has. We've offered up 4 different options, including replacing to recruit for a chief operating officer, or replacing with a chief executive officer. Do not replace a chief operating officer, but designate an existing chief officer. But it couldn't be a role that it couldn't be an existing chief officer who is a statutory officer, because it must be a standalone role. And consider a head of paid service with another council. In terms of the recommendations, we're making a recommendation for option B to move the chief executive. The current model is as a chief operating officer. However, the chief operating officer has essentially operated as a chief executive as the time and demands have evolved. The chief operating officer currently implements the executive's decision, long-term goals, leads the strategic and risk management of the council, helps and clears all the workforce objectives and leadership of both the community and its residents. It's the principal advisor for elected members and works closely with the executive to set the strategic direction of the council and represent the council on a lot of external bodies. So at all but title, the COO is undertaking a chief executive role. In the current climate, we anticipate that there may be a number of current chief executives, possibly in smaller councils, that may be interested in York. And York really is in a very good position, an attractive employer to be able to bring this role forward. As I mentioned, the head of paid service must be a standalone statutory post. So the option C was not really appropriate. And we discounted option D to share a chief exec because this hadn't been explored. So moving over in terms of the roles of chief exec versus the chief operating officer. As I said, the current chief operating officer was appointed in March 2020. Former to that, we did have a chief executive, and the former administration, the former leader, adopted a leader model rather than having a chief exec. That was very much to look at the merging issues that were there at the time, including COVID, just before 2020. Many obviously remember COVID, and also the impacts of Brexit, which seems quite a while away now. Climate change, we had York Stadium, we had York Central, and very other large infrastructure projects. They've also all been very successfully delivered. But now other challenges have been faced with the council, and we've looked at combined authority, the changing partner dynamics, changing demands of our social care has moved on even in that short space of time, and our economic and regeneration agenda has certainly been a great focus, so very much in the outside world rather than just internally. However, the COO is obviously also focused significantly on leadership and of the workforce to meet those challenges, and working with our key partners, because that's a key area that we need to do. So that really strong visible leadership has been side by side with the executive, so that's been the model. What I'm asking the committee to do is also look at the package, the pay package available. So within the pay structure, we still have a chief executive pay structure. It is the COO plus 3 increments. So although it has been dormant, when we appointed the COO, it was just the chief exec range minus 3 increments. So that's there. And I've put into paragraph 17, the pay range is 154,693 to 172,308. The role also has an emergency standby rota, which is part of both a part of Gold Command and Silver Command roles. There will be a relocation offered. Like many senior posts, we offer relocation. This is all in line with HMRC rates of up to £8,000. There is no enhancements or bonuses or any additional discretions attached to this role. Have compared the salary with other councils, and I've used the population base. You can see at paragraph 19, I've looked at Stockton, North Tyneside and Calderdale councils, and I would say the salary scale that we're actually proposing meets the requirements more than the requirements. I would suggest that we look at the upper end of the salary, so we'll look at up to in terms of advertising the role in order to be competitive. In terms of the appointments panel, we will have the appointments panel if the committee agree, and we'll open that up to make sure that we've got the right panels to make the selection. There'll be a number of panels there as well as the final interview. We will be seeking, we're also seeking a dedicated headhunt exercise through a specialist recruitment agency. This will be through a procurement process. This has started initially just to make sure that we can move on this swiftly, subject to approval this evening. At paragraph 22, I've put the proposed timetable. You can see that that moves from end of July all the way through to September to advertise the role. September, there is essentially a number of weeks of long listing, shortlisting, panel interviews and final interviews. Executive will then be given the option to object or recommend the candidate, and then it will be subject to full council. We will make the offer to the individual on a confidential basis, but it will be obviously subject to employment checks and full council approval. We would not be appointing a new chief executive until our COO has been, would not start until our COO has left, so there will be no dual appointments, dual salaries going on. We anticipate that the COO has said that he'd leave in Easter, so that's early April next year. I've put the financial implications there in terms of the difference between the current costs and the costs that we're looking at, and there's just a 12.2k difference there. The job description is that we've devised is just been updated from the former chief executive role, and that just reflects the the Local Government Association recommended template. There is a recommended template for chief executives. Okay, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Helen. And I would just like to say before we go into further conversation about this that I'd like to thank the Chief Operating Officer for 17 years of service to the organisation and also working with us in order to give us plenty of time to recruit a replacement. This is a tremendously important role for both the council, but for the city, and also now due to the fact that we're in the combined authority, the region. And I really thank him for his work over the past years for bringing us to this point. And whilst he will go off into the next stage of his career, this brings a great opportunity for the city. And it's not very often that you get the opportunity to recruit for the highest ranked officer in a council, and it is a hugely important role and one that the city is very optimistic about going out to recruit for across the board. So whilst we will be sorry to see Ian leave the organisation, there's opportunity given the fantastic position that York finds itself in at the moment as well. And in my view, the chief executive role is the right way to go. We are in such a position that we need to be outward looking. The partnership work, the relationships that need to be built to bring the best opportunity into York and take advantage of the amazing investment opportunities that are within the city at this point in time and in the broader region through the combined authority is really important that we maximise that. So at that point, I will open it up for questions to Helen. Anybody else like to ask her anything? Would you like to go ahead then, please, Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and you started in the same way that I was going to start in terms of thanking the Chief Operating Officer for the services given to the city. I was actually quite surprised he's only been here for 17 years. I feel like he's been here, well, he literally has been here as long as I've been here. It was slightly afterwards he came just after me, but it does seem like he's been a fabric of not just this building, but the previous building, and in terms of those moves. And I think we do owe him a debt of thanks for that. I think from my point of view, particularly, the stadium was a very challenging process, which he was absolutely crucial in terms of getting that one over. And then, as Councillor Lomas, who said substitute will know, having Section 151 officer, that vital relationship and having someone you can really trust and work with. And he did fulfil that role for such a significant time before obviously stepping up. And I think as well, even to be fair, the building, I didn't think about that beforehand, but the building we're in, he was one of the key drivers in terms of moving that and getting that to happen. And this has been hugely successful, very controversial at the time, how we do that and get that message across the public. But this building itself stands in many ways as a testament to the work that he's done. And we thank him as a group as well for that. In terms of that, I think that's probably where we stray in terms of agreeing. There's this committee, I think Councillor Kilbane and I mentioned at the last meeting, we'll continue to disagree about what's been achieved in terms of staffing restructures, etc. There was a saving of £250,000 from the senior management team, which the suggestion has been delivered. I still don't see that. The numbers to me still don't bear that one out. And I think the table that you look at on page 18 is the one that I was looking for in terms of doing my research before I came to that. And at least half of the staff on that particular group have taken significant upgrades in their positions and salaries, not just in terms of increments, but actually in terms of going up in terms of salary and positions. So I'm fairly certain the numbers I did last time were that that team on the top of page 18 now cost significantly more than they did 18 months ago. And that is a consequence of decisions you've taken. That's necessarily the right thing. I personally believed it was the right idea to make savings at that level to allow us to invest more into our staffing levels. I think when you look at staffings all the way through, we'll discuss tomorrow the finance papers. A lot of that has been balanced in terms of staffing vacancies and vacancies across all sorts of departments. And I think it's difficult for staff to see things like this when their colleagues are not being replaced and they're having to step up and do far more difficult and more jobs. In terms of the analysis, so it's that there isn't really enough on there to make a decision about what is the best from option A and option B. Clearly, that's your decision. You articulated quite well why you believe the chief exec role is more significant. I'm not won by the evidence in the paper. I'm not necessarily so far won over by the comments you made. I do agree there are significant challenges, but none of those challenges have changed. York Central was present at the time. We went through COVID, we went through Brexit, we went through the creation of the combined authority. All of those things were present. There hasn't been a significant change I see that would tip you into believing that a COO versus a chief exec is the way to go. So I think at the moment we would probably as a group be leaning towards maintaining the system as it is, continuing through that. I do have concerns as well written in the paper, the suggestion that a chief executive could look to restructure that. We've had a major, I say we both disagree about how successful it was, major restructure of that senior management team that took place only 12 months ago. Bringing a new chief exec in who is definitely, and let's not beat around the bush, they will not want the management structure that's been put in place for them. They'll want to review that. So that brings in itself inherent huge risk in terms of cost through that and through the rest of the structure. So that flags me with concern. It does seem a strange time to be doing it. So that's our general view on that one. On a more, a slightly constructive more note, I think, in terms of that, assuming that I don't win you over with my argument and you do go ahead with the recruitment as is, things that I'm missing around that are some of the soft touch type approaches. So I know when we recruited the chief exec last time, the executive had a meet the candidates evening with all the candidates invited and the executive on board to be able to, I do believe they may have even spoken to group leaders. I'm not sure about that, but I'm not going to hang on that. But actually having that opportunity for the exec as a whole to meet all the candidates, I thought was really useful in terms of getting to understand them. So I think that's sort of the interview panel and that process is the formal process, but I think it's such an important role. And if you do decide to go down that, it's so vital that you get the right candidate, and making a mistake at that point can tie you into a very difficult time, a long period. So I think the more opportunities that you have and the more opportunities to get to understand and do that work, I think I would recommend to you as an executive that you take those.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Aaron. Certainly be considered within our thoughts. And Councillor Kilbane, do you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. I think in Councillor Ayres' comments, there was a question around the number of and pay rates for that top team that you may or may not want to come back on, Helen. But I think the numbers of directors that we've got now are in some respect dictated to us by legislation, especially when you look at housing, for example. So I'll take on board the comments that you make, Councillor Eyre. Happy to go with the recommendation on this, because I think, as you pointed out, Helen, I think we have had a chief operating officer now for a number of years, and in effect, that chief operating officer has been asked to do a chief exec role. It's not just about being head of paid service. We need somebody that will be out there doing that chief exec role, which is, you know, selling the city, bringing in the investment that's coming in, building on that, persuading civil servants to move from Whitehall to York, all those kind of roles that pretty much every single other organisation that I talk to in the city tells me that they want. I have lost track of the number of conversations where people have said what York needs is a chief executive, and that's no detriment at all to the current chief operating officer. But it is, I think we are in step with the city here, with the way that we're going about this approach. I think it's a good suggestion about that sort of soft recruitment. I think it does help to get to know people outside of the interview process. All these interviews will be in person, so there won't be an opportunity for the interviewee to answer the questions using AI, which I believe is something that happens now using AI in real time to answer those questions. And in terms of restructures, then I guess that will be up to the chief executive when they come in, but we wouldn't expect them to come in all guns blazing either. We would expect them to come in and talk to the great team that we've got here about what's working and what areas we can improve on, because obviously we can also improve. And I'd also add my thanks to the current chief operating officer, not just for the service that he's provided over the 17 years, but also the smooth transition that we are going to go through, that he is helping to facilitate as we move from a chief operating officer to a chief executive. If memory serves me rightly, the last transition from of the head of the council wasn't quite so smooth. So we look forward to that being all done well, professionally and smoothly on this occasion.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. And so therefore, following that, I draw your attention to the recommendations that are on page 24. And that's at paragraph 26. And it's recommended that the committee approves the recruitment of a chief executive as a replacement of the chief operating officer following the early notification that the post holder intends to retire at Easter 2026. Confirms the pay package for the role of chief executive to allow the post to be advertised. C, establishes an appointment subcommittee for the role to delegate sufficient powers to the subcommittee, enabling them to conduct the recruitment process, select and appoint a candidate subject to the requirements of the standing orders on appointment. D, approves the engagement of an executive recruitment consultant to undertake an executive search to aid the recruitment process. And this process will follow procurement processes. And E, notes the proposed timetable for the recruitment campaign. So can I see those who are in favour of those recommendations, please? Thanks. So there's 2 people in favour of the recommendations, those who are against, and 1 against, no abstentions. Thank you. Great, thank you very much, and thanks for that, Helen. And it'd be good to get that process started now as a matter of urgency, and so that we can transition into chief executive with a smooth process come April 2026. Very good, thank you. Next item then is the work plan. That's item number 7. So at this point in time, it looks like we've just got the standard items for September. Is there anything else that you want to add in there, Helen?
Yes, please, Chair. Just in September, we will also have the report for the new Director of Your Waste when we'll transfer. You may recall from the last meeting, we appointed temporarily Debbie Mitchell in place of James Gilchrist, and we'll now transfer it from Debbie to the Service Director, to the Director of that service, which will be Dave Atkinson, who starts on the 1st of August. So it'll just be a smooth transition bounce there. So sorry, that's omitted from the work plan, but that will be added. Other than that, it's the standard
Okay.
reports. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Can I see those in favour of the work plan with that amendment that Helen's just laid out then? So that's approved unanimously as well. And then we move into item number 8, and I will leave the meeting at this point. Councillor Corbane will take over as the chair, and Councillor Lomas will be the other voting member on the committee. And I won't come back, so you can finish off the meeting. Therefore, Councillor Corbane.
You haven't got any urgent business for me then?
None. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
I could say thank you, Chair, but I'm the chair now, aren't I? So thank you, Councillor Douglas, and Councillor Lomas has kindly agreed to act as your sub for the next matter, which is about the appointment to City of York Trading Limited and Work with York Limited of a director and chair nominations. I think it's you, Helen, taking forward this report. So if you'd like to talk us through, that would be great.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this report is looking at 3 proposals that all involve Councillor Douglas. So the first one is, and these proposals are running in line with what happened at Shareholder Committee and Council on the 22nd of May. So it may seem a little bit repetitive, but they're 3 individual proposals following recently that City of York Trading and Work with York are now 2 separate organisations. So in full council in May 22nd of May, Councillor Douglas was appointed to the chair of CYT, City of York Trading, but we also need to have that approved here. And we're also looking at, we're also looking at that being nominated here as well. So I'll kind of do all of the points individually. Work with York was established earlier this year as a separate organisation, still a TCAL company, so a vertical arrangement company, and the details are in there. I won't go through all of that, Chair, because it's already been communicated at this panel. I would just say at paragraph 7, we do have an amendment of the second councillor. So Councillor Callum Taylor noticed as a non-executive director. That should be amended to Councillor John Morney. I'm afraid it was an error that was picked up just after publication, so apologies for that. That's the current board of directors. And the current director of Councillor Ian Cuthbertson will be replaced by Councillor Claire Douglas. And if Councillor Claire Douglas is the board of directors for Work with York, we're also looking for a nomination for Claire Douglas to be the chair of Work with York as well. Sorry, that seems very confusing, but it's 3 different proposals. I'll probably take you to paragraph 17. It's probably the best way of doing it in terms of the recommendations and reasons, Chair. So to approve the appointment of Claire Douglas to represent the council on the board of directors of City of York Trading Company and Work with York Limited. And this is running dual track because it's been done as shareholders to also be done here. And the current arrangements that we need to put in place are that the managing director will make sure that all of the register of companies and Companies House will be updated accordingly. Councillor Ian Cuthbertson will also stand down, but will continue as a non-executive director on the board rather than just chair. And then Councillor Douglas will also act as chair and the Board of Directors for Work with York Limited in place of, again, Councillor Ian Cuthbertson. Again, Councillor Ian Cuthbertson will also just remain on the board as a non-executive director. And that's it, sorry. There's just like 3 different ones.
But in essence, Councillor Douglas will be elected onto the board of City of York Trading and Work with York, respectively, and then appointed chair of both respectively. And this is a process that we're having to follow to make sure everything's constitutional and above board and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shareholders Committee have approved this, so this is just like to work in conjunction with Shareholders Committee and full council.
Okay, make sure that we're all in accordance with statute. Okay, any questions or comments? Councillor?
Very brief and very simple one. That you mentioned an amendment to replace Councillor Taylor with who?
So John Maroney.
It was a slightly mumbled Maroney, so I'm very grateful to Councillor for making it clear that it is Councillor John Maroney. Any other questions or comments even? No, we're all okay to move to the vote. Then you've actually just gone through it, Helen. So I'll just refer anybody watching the recommendations and reasons are given at paragraph 17 in the report that Helen's just been through, and essentially we are appointing Councillor Douglas to the Board of Directors of City York Trading Limited and Work with York Limited, and we are also approving the appointment of Councillor Douglas to act as chair of both of those organisations, which are now separate organisations, hence the reason for going through this process too. So all those in favour of those recommendations? I think that's carried unanimously. So thank you for that. And I have been instructed that there is no urgent business except for no urgent business has been passed on to me as a standing chair tonight. So with that in mind, I will bring this meeting to a close and thank you all very much for your contributions and attention.